I was there the night Tupac was shot, and before his eyes closed, he whispered something into my ear that no one else heard. Something no one should ever hear. For years, I've kept it buried because speaking it out loud feels dangerous, like inviting whatever it was back into my life. But silence has been eating me alive, and I can't carry this alone anymore. What I heard in that car still keeps me up. I don't dream anymore. I just replay it. I'm not going to use names here. Not mine, not anyone else's. Call me what you want. Driver, runner, extra body in the convoy. I wasn't important, and that's probably why I'm still breathing. My job that night was simple. Keep the line moving. Keep the doors clear. Keep the noise out. That's it. Nothing heroic, nothing special. Just close enough to see and hear the things most people never do, and close enough to wish I had. It was one of those Vegas nights that feels like the Strip decided to inhale and never exhale. Heat trapped between neon and concrete, the kind that slicks your neck even after midnight. Bad tempers, big smiles, everyone larger than life because the lights make you feel untouchable. We just spilled out of a crowded event where the energy was loud and wild, all teeth and adrenaline, the kind of crowd that hums under your skin after you walk away, like you're still standing in it. He, the artist, was taller in presence than in height, if that makes sense. The room bent around him. People tried to be casual, but you could tell they were waiting to be noticed, leaning in, angling their bodies like sunflowers. He moved fast, spoke faster, and when he laughed, it knocked down the invisible walls people keep up to protect themselves. Every door opened a little quicker for him. Every hallway parted just enough. He was that kind of gravity. I was there because I'd been there before. Someone needed to clear a path, carry a bag, keep a car idling. The unglamorous jobs keep nights like that from breaking apart. You're the hinge, not the door. That's how I thought about it back then. Inside the hotel, the air turned from desert heat to recycled coal that smelled like carpet cleaner and old money. Security in cheap suits pretended not to stare. Real security didn't pretend at all. We moved through a service corridor where the ceiling tiles were too low and the lights flickered like a nervous tick. He walked ahead, a small circle around him, laughing, talking, making plans that would never happen. I kept my distance, close enough to step in, far enough to stay invisible. There was a moment, small, stupid, the kind you ignore when you're tired, that still needles me. We passed a doorman by the side entrance, head shaved, posture perfect. He held the door without blinking. Nothing odd about that, except he didn't seem to have pupils. His eyes were a flat, glassy gray, almost reflective, like those cheap Halloween contacts. But these weren't cheap, and this wasn't a joke. He watched us go through, and in the split second when the door swung between us, I saw myself reflected in those eyes like a smudge on polished steel. I told myself it was the light. Vegas does that to you? Makes you see things? I shook it off, kept moving. He was restless that night, even during the good moments. I noticed it in the small tells, the way he touched his jaw when he was thinking, the way he scanned the edges of a room before he sat down. People chalk that up to paranoia, but there's a difference. Paranoia makes you sloppy. This wasn't sloppy, it was alert. Like a dog that hears a whistle. You can't. In the elevator up to the suite, a woman in a silver dress squeezed in at the last second. Perfume like sugared smoke. She smiled without looking anyone in the eye and faced the doors, hands folded, breathing too slow for a person who'd just run to make it. When the doors opened, she didn't step out. She waited until we did, then let the doors close and rode the car back down alone. No button pressed, no movement at all. Just a smile that didn't touch her face. I didn't like that. But again, I told myself Vegas does that to you. Inside the suite for a few minutes, everything felt almost normal. TV low in the background, a plate of room service wings nobody touched, laughter coming in bursts like a skipping record. He leaned against the balcony rail, looking out at lights that never turn off. Someone made a joke about getting lost out there, and he laughed, big and real, and for a second the tension in my shoulders let go. That's how it works. Tension lets go, and something steps in. My job was to check the cars, line them up, keep the timing right. I headed back downstairs through the same service corridor with those low ceilings. The lights flickered again, slower this time. In the far corner, a housekeeping cart sat half in, half out of a closet door, stacked with towels, so white they looked staged. The door behind it wasn't all the way closed. A line of darkness cut down the center like a pupil. I don't know why I noticed it. Maybe because I just told myself to stop noticing things. The garage was thick with heat. Engines idled, the air oily and heavy. I ran through the checklist, license plates, fuel, radios, spacing. The car he'd ride in was spotless, the kind of clean only someone else's hands can keep. I sat in the driver's seat for a second, not to rest, just to listen. Radios hissed, then settled. In the overhead mirror, my face looked like a stranger's face, lit by instrument glow. Jaw clenched harder than I had realized. We rolled out not long after. Tight line, headlights carving tunnels in the dark. Strip noise pushed against the glass. Horns, laughter, that strange Vegas sound that's not quite music and not quite screaming. I kept my position, eyes on the taillights ahead. For a while, it felt smooth, the machine working. Then I saw it. Back left, 2 lanes over, a dark car without plates, tinted deep enough to swallow light. It kept pace instead of passing, just close enough that I started counting to see if it matched our speed changes. It did. I told myself I was being dramatic because that's what you do when you don't want to be right. But it stayed there, steady as a shadow. We hit a red. The city pressed in around us. People pointed, phones out, flash, flash, flash. I scanned left again. The dark car had eased back, then slid forward as if pulled on a string. Nobody in my car said a word. It's a weird kind of quiet when you're surrounded by noise, like the world forgets you for a second. He leaned out the window of the lead car, talking to someone on the sidewalk, smile wide, eyes bright. For a heartbeat, he looked light again, the way people do when they forget or decide not to care. The light turned green. We moved. The dark car moved too. My stomach did that elevator drop you get when you miss a step. I told myself, it's Vegas. Everything here is theater. Keep your lane, keep your distance, keep your mouth shut unless you have something useful to say. That was the job. Be the hinge, not the door. Back at the next stop, I glanced right, and the doorman from earlier flashed through my head, the flat eyes, the reflection of my own face where pupils should be. It made zero sense to think of him then, but I did. I tightened my grip on the wheel until my fingers hurt. The radio crackled with nothing. The air in the car felt too thin, like someone had turned it down half a notch. He shifted in the seat ahead of me, elbow on the edge of the open window, fingers tapping out a rhythm only he knew. I remember thinking, ridiculously, that if he had time left, he'd make another song out of the sound our engines made it idle. He had a way of catching the world in places nobody else thought to look. When the light changed again, the dark car moved with us. No hurry, no brake checks, no flash of aggression. Just that same steady patience, like it was waiting for its line. The strip's neon washed the street in a bruise of colors. The night smelled like hot rubber and cold beer. And there, just past the next intersection, the traffic thinned in a way that felt designed, like a stagehand had pulled bodies off the sidewalk and cleared the sound. I didn't know it then, but the last normal second of my life had already passed. But what happened next took things to a whole new level. The moment I stepped out into the night air, it hit me. The kind of heat that sticks to your skin even when the desert sun's long gone. Vegas at midnight isn't cool, it's suffocating. The air feels used, heavy with exhaust and perfume and that sharp tang of electricity that never really dies on the Strip. It's a city that tricks you into thinking you're alive, when really you're just being devoured one bright bulb at a time. Still, there was comfort in routine. We'd done this before. The cars were lined up, polished so clean, you could see your reflection bend in the hood. Radios tested, routes mapped, engines humming low like beasts on a leash. And for a few minutes, it felt normal. Just another night, another job, another famous name sliding through neon like a shadow wrapped in spotlights. I remember thinking the rhythm of it was almost soothing. The chatter of the guys ahead, the clink of jewelry when someone shifted in their seat, the faint thump of bass leaking from a passing car. He leaned back in his seat, relaxed, tapping out a beat on the door with his knuckles. The same hands that could write fury and tenderness in the same verse now drummed out something casual, almost playful. I told myself he looked calm. I told myself we all were. But beneath that thin comfort, something else simmered. Subtle. Easy to ignore if you wanted to. Hard to shake if you didn't. The Strip was alive, but not alive in the way I remembered it. The noise was there. Tourists shouting, slot machines ringing from open casino doors, the occasional horn blaring, but it felt off. Hollow somehow. Like the sound wasn't attached to people, just a recording being looped through hidden speakers. My stomach nodded, but I pushed it down. You learn to push things down in this line of work. I noticed it in body language first. The man in the seat beside him kept glancing over his shoulder every few seconds, like he expected someone to be standing there, breathing down his neck. Another guy chewed the inside of his cheek until the muscle there twitched like a heartbeat. Nobody said anything about it. Nobody asked. We all played along with the script. Keep it light. Keep it cool. Don't show the cracks. But the cracks were there. The lights on the Strip felt brighter than usual, almost harsh. Neon bled into the windshield, painting his face in fractured blues and reds. For a second, he looked less like himself and more like a stranger caught in a police siren. He caught me staring in the rear view and gave a small grin, half reassurance, half warning. I looked away quickly, pretending to adjust the mirror. False comfort came in waves. The crowd pressing in on the sidewalks made it easy to believe we were untouchable, too visible to be touched. The smell of fast food drifting in through the cracked window reminded me of normal nights. Long drives, greasy wrappers crumpled underfoot. He cracked a joke about the tourists, something about how they looked at him like they'd seen a ghost. Everyone laughed. Too loud, too quick. I forced a chuckle, but the words landed wrong in my gut. The unease kept stacking. Small things. A group of kids on the corner, faces half hidden under hoodies despite the heat, all staring at our cars instead of the chaos around them. A woman in sequins snapping a picture, but her camera didn't flash, didn't even click. She just held it steady, lens fixed on us, until we pulled away. The way the traffic light seemed to hold red a little too long, like the city wanted us trapped at every intersection. And then there was the car. Dark, window tint so black, it swallowed the neon. It pulled up 2 lanes over, not too close, not too far. At first I brushed it off. Vegas was full of rentals, black sedans, tourists trying to look important. But then I noticed it wasn't passing. It wasn't lagging. It was matching us perfectly. Every acceleration, every brake, like a shadow that had learned how to drive. I shifted in my seat, palms damp on the wheel. Tried to keep my breathing steady. I told myself it was nothing, that I was reading too much into it. I told myself the strip was crawling with cars and one more didn't matter. But I couldn't stop checking the mirror. Couldn't stop counting the beats between their movements and ours. And every time, the numbers matched. He leaned halfway out the window then, laughing at something someone shouted from the sidewalk. Gold glinted in the neon as he threw back his head. And for a moment, the tension cracked. It felt real again. Like maybe nothing was wrong. Like maybe this was just another night. But when he leaned back inside, his smile faded quick, and he rubbed his temples with one hand like a man fighting off a migraine. "Everything cool?" someone asked him. He nodded. Too fast, too firm. The kind of nod that ends conversations instead of answering them. We hit another stoplight. Red. The longest yet. The noise of the strip pressed in again, thick and unreal. I drummed my fingers on the steering wheel, too loud in my own ears. The dark car crept forward, inch by inch, until it lined up with us at the cross street. I couldn't see the driver. Couldn't see anyone at all. Just the faintest ripple behind the glass, like a shadow, shifting. The light held. Too long. Much too long. I glanced at the timer on the dash, certain something had glitched. But it was working fine. The city just wasn't. He shifted in his seat again, tapping his fingers faster now. A rhythm I couldn't follow. The others stayed quiet, eyes straight ahead, jaws clenched. I realized then it wasn't just me. They felt it too. The wrongness in the air. The weight pressing down. But nobody wanted to break the silence, because once you break it, you can't put it back together. The light turned green. Relief should have come with it. It didn't. Engines roared as we pulled forward. Tires squealed faintly as the dark car rolled too. Not aggressive, not reckless, just steady, patient, watching. I told myself again and again, it's fine. This is Vegas. It's crowded. It's chaos. Cars line up, fall in, follow. Nothing more. But deep down, I didn't believe it. I could feel the truth gnawing at me, same way the desert gnaws at the strip, waiting to take it back. And that's when I knew we weren't just being followed. We were being hunted. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Something in the night shifted, and I can't point to just one thing. It was the way small details began to stack, each one whispering that we were in the wrong place at the wrong time. We rolled up outside a hotel, one of those polished spots where money hides behind marble and tinted glass. The crowd swarmed, phones flashing. He cracked the window halfway, tossing them a grin, and for a second it felt almost normal. But then I saw her. A woman in a glittering dress stepped off the curb. She didn't cheer, didn't scream, didn't even raise her phone. She just looked straight at me, past the tint, past the glass. Her lips moved, shaping a word I didn't recognize. Not his name, not mine, something heavier. And then she smiled, thin and deliberate, like the answer had already been decided. And when I blinked, she was gone, swallowed by the crowd. My gut twisted. Inside the hotel's service corridor, the air smelled of steam and metal. Doors lined both sides, most chipped and ordinary except one. Steel, unmarked, with a keypad glowing faint green. As we passed, it hummed, faint enough to feel in my teeth. I glanced back, and one of the security guys shook his head quickly, and silently. Don't. I faced forward, throat tight. Upstairs, we cut through a lounge where velvet furniture swallowed people whole. A man at the bar turned, glass paused at his lips. He scanned our faces like checking names off a list, then set the drink down untouched and slipped out, heading straight for the same service corridor we'd come through. No one else noticed. I did. In the suite antechamber, the team moved through the motions, checking closets, windows, blinds, but it was off. Too thorough, like they expected to find something. One guy opened and shut the same door 3 times, running his palm down the wall as if it might pulse under his hand. Someone laughed to break the tension, but it cracked in half before it left his throat. Then he asked for a minute alone. That wasn't unusual. He always needed space between the noise and the next step. But when the door clicked behind him, the silence pressed too hard. Not private, not respectful, wrong. I counted breaths. No one shifted. No one coughed. No one dared check their phone. The air conditioner rattled, and the sound made my skin itch. The door opened again fast, almost too fast. He stepped out, eyes damp, not from tears, but like he'd been standing in wind. He gripped my shoulder with a weight that surprised me. "We good?" he asked. Not casual, not friendly. Inventory. Yeah, I muttered, though I didn't believe it. We moved back down, through the lounge again. The seating had shifted. Guests in different places, eyes on us longer than they should have been. The bartender stared at the counter like he was reading through it. A woman in a blazer tilted her head down but kept her eyes up, tracking us like a predator. In the elevator, the floor numbers glitched. 7, 8, 10, 9, before snapping to 1. Nobody spoke. He cracked his knuckles, shaking his hands loose, like preparing for something none of us could see. Downstairs, the keypad door still pulsed green. As we passed, the light stuttered. Green. Dark. Green. And that same hum clawed at my teeth. I clenched my jaw and walked faster. Back in the garage, the heat clung thicker than before, oil and exhaust pressing in. The dark car had moved, not farther away, closer, waiting. I slid behind the wheel, hands trembling until I wrapped them tight at 10 and 2. He climbed in ahead of me. His jaw was tight, eyes sharper than I'd ever seen them. Not fear, exactly, something worse. Recognition, like he'd been here before, like he knew exactly how the night was about to end. The engine growled, doors slammed shut, radios murmured, For a second, the garage seemed to hold its breath with us. Then we rolled out, swallowed by neon and desert air that felt too thin to breathe. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a night gone bad. We weren't being followed, we were being hunted. But that was just the beginning. I've replayed that moment in my head 1,000 times, and every time I try to explain it, the words fall short. The truth is, I knew something was wrong long before the bullets. I could feel it crawling under my skin like static that never discharges. We pulled onto the strip, engines growling low, the neon bleeding across the windshield in fractured colors. People pointed, shouting his name, cameras flashing. On the surface, it was excitement, the kind he thrived on. But underneath, there was a weight in the air, thicker than the heat, heavier than the crowd. I kept scanning the mirrors, eyes darting from lane to lane. The dark car was still there, shadowing us with surgical precision. Every turn we made, it made. Every slowdown, every red light, it moved like it had rehearsed the choreography. No plates, no mistakes, just patience. He leaned forward in his seat, arms resting on the window frame, looking out at the crowd. From the outside, it looked casual, like a man soaking up his city. But I could see the way his shoulders tensed, the way his jaw clenched when the lights hit him just right. He wasn't soaking it in, he was bracing. At one red light, everything slowed. The traffic noise dimmed, as if someone had turned the city's volume down. He turned his head, eyes locking with mine in the rear view. For 1 second, it was like he was trying to tell me something without speaking. My stomach flipped. Then it happened. The dark car surged forward, sliding up alongside us. The window rolled down, smooth, deliberate. My chest seized. Time bent itself into knots. The first shots cracked out, shattering the thin fabric of normalcy. Glass exploded. Tires screeched. People screamed. But that wasn't the part that stuck with me. It was what happened inside the car. He jerked, slumping against the seat, blood blooming fast across his chest. Instinct kicked in. I leaned forward, trying to press down, trying to keep him anchored in the world. My hands were slippery, my heart pounding in my ears louder than the gunfire. And then he looked at me. Not the unfocused gaze of a man slipping away. His eyes were sharp, almost too sharp, locking onto mine with an intensity that rooted me to the spot. He grabbed my wrist with a strength that didn't make sense for someone bleeding out. His grip was iron, his nails digging into my skin through the glove. And he whispered. At first, it wasn't words. It was sound. Low, guttural, like a growl pressed through broken glass. I leaned closer, thinking maybe it was a shock. Maybe he was trying to form words but couldn't. But the sound vibrated through me, deep in my bones, like it wasn't coming from his throat, but from everywhere at once. The hairs on my arms rose, my teeth ached, the world outside the car blurred, light smearing into streaks of color. I couldn't tell if it was blood loss on his part or panic on mine, but the air itself felt wrong, bending around us. He pulled me closer, lips against my ear. This time, the sound shaped itself into words. Not English, not anything I've ever heard before. Syllables heavy as stone, strung together in a rhythm that didn't belong to any language I knew. My head pounded with each one, like my skull was trying to crack under the weight of it. I wanted to pull away, to cover my ears, but I couldn't. I was locked in place, trapped by the intensity in his eyes. One of the guys in the front seat shouted something. Panic. Commands. I don't remember. I couldn't hear him over the whisper. The gunfire had stopped, the car still rolling forward in chaos, but all I could hear was that impossible voice, pressing deeper, leaving echoes that didn't fade. And then, God help me, I swear I saw it. His lips moved, but the voice that came out wasn't just his. It was layered, stacked, a chorus of tones too deep and too high to come from one human throat. For a moment, the air in the car shimmered, violet light flickering faintly under his skin like veins of lightning. I blinked hard, thinking it was blood loss, adrenaline, hysteria. But when I opened my eyes again, it was still there, just for a heartbeat, then gone. I froze, my pulse hammering in my throat. He kept whispering, softer now, but still insistent. The words made no sense, yet they etched themselves into me like scars. I couldn't repeat them if I tried, not without feeling that same pressure in my skull. It was like they didn't want to be spoken aloud. Outside, sirens began to wail in the distance. The crowd was screaming, scattering, phones out, people pointing. To them, it was chaos, tragedy, violence. But to me, it was something else. Something I couldn't explain then, and still can't now. He tightened his grip on my wrist once more, eyes boring into mine. And in that final moment before his strength gave way, I realized he wasn't just telling me something, he was passing it on. Whatever those words were, whatever they meant, they weren't meant for me. And yet, now they live inside me. He slumped back, his grip loosening, breath ragged. The others shouted his name, scrambling, pressing down on wounds, yelling for help. I sat frozen, my hands still tingling where he'd held me, my ears still ringing with words I wasn't supposed to hear. The sirens grew louder. The dark car vanished into the night, swallowed by the city as if it had never existed. And I sat there, blood on my hands, heart racing, knowing I had just witnessed something no one else would ever believe. Then came the real shock. I can't lie to you. This is the part that eats at me most. Not the bullets, not the blood, not even the chaos that followed. It's what happened in those seconds after he pulled me close, when his voice didn't sound like it belonged to him anymore. That's the part I can't forget. His breath was hot and wet against my ear, but the words, if I can even call them that, didn't ride the air like normal speech. They sank, they burrowed, they vibrated inside my skull like someone had struck a tuning fork against bone. I couldn't repeat them to you, not even if I wanted to. They don't sit in memory like normal words. They sit deeper, coiled in places language doesn't belong. At first, I thought it was shock. Blood loss makes people say things, see things, but this wasn't delirium. This was deliberate. He knew what he was saying. His grip on my wrist tightened every time I tried to pull back, forcing me to hear. And here's the thing that still makes my skin crawl. I wasn't just hearing it, I was feeling it. The syllables weren't sliding past my ears, they were crawling down my spine, pressing against my chest, making my vision tilt and bend. My stomach knotted as if I'd swallowed electricity. I glanced at the others in the car, desperate for someone to notice, but they didn't react. They were shouting, panicked, pressing cloth to wounds, calling his name. To them, he was slipping away. To me, he was wide awake and drilling something into my head no one else could hear. The lights on the strip stretched and warped through the shattered glass. Every billboard flickered violet. Every headlight smeared into jagged streaks. I blinked, but the distortion didn't go away. His voice had rewired the world around me. And then the chorus started. I don't know how else to describe it. His lips moved, but the sound that poured out wasn't his voice alone. It was layered, stacked, like 100 throats whispering through him all at once. Some tones were deep, rumbling like earthquakes. Others were so high I could barely register them, like glass, humming. They spoke together and against each other, weaving into something my brain fought to understand. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. My jaw was locked, my throat tight. My entire body trembled, but I couldn't move. I was a radio stuck on one channel, and the frequency was breaking me apart. He stared at me through it all. His eyes weren't the dull, glassy eyes of a man bleeding out. They burned, not glowing, not shining, but alive in a way I'd never seen. Too alive. It felt like he could see through me, past me, into whatever I tried to keep hidden. One of the guys in the front seat shook me, snapping me halfway out of it. "Help him," he screamed. But I couldn't. Not in the way they meant. My hands were on him, yes, but not to save him. I was clinging because I couldn't let go. His grip on me wasn't just physical anymore. It was like the words themselves had wrapped around my bones. And then came the shift. For one horrifying second, I swear he stopped breathing. His chest stilled, his lips still moving, and the voices kept pouring out. Voices that weren't his. Voices that couldn't be human. The air inside the car grew dense, pressing down on us, rattling the mirrors and the dashboard. I thought the glass would shatter again, this time from the inside. The hum in my skull deepened until I thought it would split me open, and with it came something else. Images. Not clear, not sharp, but flashes. A desert at night, blacker than any sky I'd ever seen. Shapes standing in a circle, their faces blurred, their mouths moving in rhythm with his. Flames burning without smoke. And over it all, a sound like wings dragging across metal. I snapped my eyes shut and tried to shake it out, but the images didn't fade. They pulsed with every whisper. I wanted to tear my ears off just to make it stop. And then, just like that, the car lurched back into focus. The voices quieted. His grip loosened. His chest rose once, shuddering. For a moment, I thought it was over. I thought he'd slip back into the world the others were living in, the world of gunshots and blood loss and panic. But then, he whispered one last phrase, soft enough that only I could hear it. I can't tell you what it was. Not because I don't remember, but because even thinking about it twists something inside me. The closest I can say is, it wasn't meant for human ears. It wasn't sound as much as it was a command. A key turned in a lock I didn't know I had. The second the words left him, the world went silent. Not quiet, silent. No sirens, no shouting, no screech of tires. Just absolute stillness. I looked around, panicked, and saw everyone moving in slow motion, mouths open, hands pressing, but no sound reaching me. It lasted maybe a second, maybe less, but it felt like forever. Then the noise rushed back, crashing over me like a wave. He slumped fully against the seat, eyes half shut now, the fire fading. The others kept working, yelling for someone to call ahead to get help. None of them looked at me. None of them knew what I'd just heard, what I'd just carried. My hands trembled so hard I had to press them into my lap to hide it. The blood on my gloves itched, though I knew that wasn't possible. My chest burned with each breath, like the whisper had left a scar inside me. I wanted to run. I wanted to throw the door open and disappear into the night. But I didn't. I couldn't. My body was locked between terror and obedience, waiting for another command that never came. I looked down at him one last time. His lips had gone still, but his eyes were still on me, barely open, heavy with blood loss, but focused, seeing me, holding me accountable for carrying what he'd just passed on. And that's when everything changed. I didn't run. I didn't fight. I froze, my whole body locked in place like I'd been cemented into the seat. My heart was still hammering from what I'd heard, those impossible whispers, but I couldn't move, couldn't even speak. My mouth was dry, my throat swollen shut like the words he'd pressed into me had sealed something inside. The car was chaos all around me. Someone in the front seat was yelling for pressure, for towels, for something to hold the blood back. Another voice shouted into a radio that wasn't connecting, crackling and cutting out as if the air itself didn't want the signal to get through. Everyone was moving, frantic, but I was still frozen in the eye of a storm. I remember staring at my gloves, soaked in his blood. The warmth seeped through, sticky, heavy, clinging. But what scared me wasn't the blood. It was the way my hands still buzzed, like they were holding electricity, like the whispers hadn't let go of me yet. Then came the sirens. Distant at first, then closer, wailing against the neon blur of Vegas. You'd think that sound would be a relief, but it wasn't. It was another reminder of how real this was, how permanent, how inescapable. The sirens meant witnesses, reports, questions I couldn't answer. The sirens meant the moment was about to spread like wildfire. But the truth, the part no one else had heard, was mine alone. And it was already poisoning me from the inside. The convoy swerved, engines roaring louder than the panic inside the cars. I don't remember the turns, don't remember the lights. We moved like a blur, cutting through streets that bent around us. My eyes kept flicking to the rear view, but the dark car was gone, vanished, as if it had never been there. And that was almost worse. At least when you see the threat, you know where it is. Now, the danger was everywhere, nowhere. Someone grabbed my shoulder, snapping me out of my trance. "You good?" they barked. My head jerked, but no words came out. I just nodded, stiff and hollow. My throat wouldn't work. He searched my face for a beat too long, then turned back, muttering, "Stay sharp. Stay sharp." As if sharpness could cut through what I'd just heard. We pulled into the hospital. Lights flooded us, harsh and blinding. Medics swarmed, ripping doors open, dragging him out on a stretcher. People shouted, cameras flashed, the crowd pressed closer. The world exploded with noise again, and I stayed glued to my seat, still holding the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached. That's when the first threat came. A man in a dark suit leaned into my window. Not a medic, not a cop, someone else. His face was expressionless, eyes sharp as knives. "You didn't hear a thing," he said, just like that. Flat, certain. "You didn't see a thing. You'll write what we tell you. You'll say what we tell you. That's all." I wanted to protest, to shake my head, to ask what the hell he meant. But all I could do was nod again, like a puppet. He stared at me a moment longer, then tapped the car door twice, a signal, before vanishing into the chaos. I should have gotten out then. Should have followed the medics, done something. But I couldn't. I sat there in the noise and the lights, heart thudding, head ringing with the echoes of what had been whispered into me. It wasn't just memory anymore. It was presence. I could still feel the weight of it pressing behind my eyes. Hours blurred. Police swarmed the hospital, reporters shouted, people cried. Statements were taken, details collected. Everyone was frantic, scrambling to piece together what had happened. Everyone except me. I kept silent, not out of choice, but out of fear. Fear of what I'd say if I opened my mouth, fear of who might be listening, fear of speaking those syllables aloud. And when I finally did try to speak, when an officer shoved a pad toward me and barked, "What did you see?" my throat seized. I could form words about the car, the gunfire, the glass, but when I reached the part where he had grabbed me, where he whispered, I couldn't. My tongue felt swollen, my chest tightened, my ears rang. I mumbled something vague, skipped over it, and their eyes slid past me like I was unimportant. But I knew what was missing. I knew the hole in the story was big enough to swallow me whole. That night, I didn't go home. I couldn't. I drove aimlessly through the city, light smearing across the windshield, echoes of his voice scratching at the back of my skull. Every time I thought I'd tuned it out, it came back. Those syllables, those impossible layers of sound, replaying in whispers no one else could hear. I pulled into a gas station around 3 a.m., hands trembling too badly to pump the fuel. I staggered inside, trying to steady my breathing. The clerk glanced at me once, then again, eyes narrowing. "Rough night?" he asked. I wanted to laugh, but it came out as a choked cough. My reflection in the plexiglass looked pale, eyes bloodshot, jaw locked tight. I nodded, muttered something about long hours and left. But the way he looked at me lingered, like he could tell something was crawling under my skin, something that didn't belong. When I finally collapsed onto my bed, I thought sleep would take me. It didn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him again, bleeding, staring, whispering. I'd wake with a start, heart hammering, swearing I could still feel his grip on my wrist. My skin tingled there for days. And then came the dreams. They weren't dreams, really. More like visitations. I'd hear the whispers again, feel the vibration through my bones, see flashes of that desert circle, those blurred faces, that sound of wings on metal. I'd wake up gasping, clutching my ears, half expecting blood to pour from them. The next morning, the phone rang. No number, just silence when I picked up. Then a faint sound, one I recognized instantly. A hum, the same low vibration I'd felt in the car. My chest tightened, and I slammed the phone down. It rang again an hour later. I didn't answer. The following night, I caught movement outside my window. A figure standing too still in the shadows, watching. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and it was gone. But the next night, it was back. And the night and after that. I don't know who they were. I don't know what they wanted, but I knew why they were there. They wanted me silent. They wanted to make sure the words he whispered never slipped out. And the worst part? They didn't have to. I wasn't going to tell anyone. Not because of them. Because of it. Because deep down, I knew those words weren't meant to be repeated. Because every time I even thought about them, my body reacted like I was being crushed from the inside. Regret set in hard. regret for being there, for letting him grab me, for leaning in close when I should have pulled away. But fear drowned, regret fast. Fear that I was carrying something I couldn't put down. Fear that it wasn't over. I thought the shooting was the end of the story, but it wasn't. The shooting was just the stage, the distraction. The real story, the real horror was what he gave me. And living with it was worse than dying that night. But what happened next took things to a whole new level. Sometimes, late at night, I still feel his breath in my ear, hot, heavy, pressing words I never wanted to carry. The syllables crawl up my throat on their own, like they're trying to escape me, like they want to be spoken again. I bite down until my jaw aches, afraid of what might happen if they ever get out. If you hear me mumbling in my sleep, don't lean in. Don't listen. Because whatever he whispered into me that night, it's still alive, and it's waiting for someone else to hear it.